Millions of children around the world suffer and die every day from something that's completely preventable: starvation. Today's guest is Will Moore, CEO of the Eleanor Crook Foundation, who is fighting back with a remedy: life-saving nutrition packs made in America bearing the symbol of the American flag. A youth nutrition expert once said, "There's nothing quite like the cry of a hungry child." It's a unique sound that just cuts right to your heart. From Ballard Studios in Washington, D.C., a very special episode of 13th and Park.
The hard things that are necessary, we either do it or we'll pay the price down the road.
That often is missing in politics.
We have to solve everything.
It's a nightmare.
You and I can differ, but that doesn't mean you and I cannot be friends.
I have faith in the American people.
Those are the facts.
The Illuminati, right there. Aliens could have invaded and nothing would surprise me at this point.
We went from North Korea to M&M. That's a lot, man.
What's in this tea?
Will, great to have you on the show. There's a lot of attention in the world right now on what's going on in Gaza. You don't wish for anything like this, but has this helped you in providing a further impetus for people to take a much more serious and immediate look at this issue?
Gaza is such a tricky context for so many reasons. It's hard to know what's happening in Gaza. It does seem like there is a tremendous amount of food insecurity and starvation, and things have gotten extremely dire. Usually this issue doesn't bubble up into the media. It's not something that people hear about every day, but when it does, it's always a bit of a head scratcher in a way, because there are many other places in the world. I mean, not to diminish at all the horrors of what people are enduring right now in Gaza, but so many places around the world where children are dying in mass every day from starvation, something that folks living in the U.S. usually aren't even aware of. But we still live in a world where 3 million kids die every year from malnutrition.
It doesn't make any sense that there isn't more coverage of something that is so blatantly inhumane, especially since this is something we can do something about.
I think there have been periods in history when there was more coverage. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, you had sort of rock stars talking about let's join hands and end hunger. And I think for a lot of people, that was kind of like my dad's issue, my granddad's issue, and people get tired of the same bad news story over and over again. There. And also, it's a long ways away. I mean, people have got their own problems, and they're more interested in what's happening in their neighborhoods and their own backyards, and it's easier to look the other way. But that is still the reality for so many of our brothers and sisters around the world.
But, it's very personal for you, too, because it was your grandmother, Eleanor Crook, who apparently on a trip to Africa saw firsthand what malnutrition and starvation looks like, feels like, and presents itself as. And that gave rise to her really wanting to move into this area decidedly, and you as well, right?
That's right. Yeah. My grandmother's my boss still. She's in her 90s and still very engaged in everything we do at the foundation, and is the moral rudder that drives not just us and our team at the foundation, but really the whole family. She learned through her church in the 1970s that there was a different sort of hunger out there. And those images have haunted her for 5 decades now. And she really wants us and her foundation to be able to help other countries along that journey to go from a frontier state to a state where everybody can afford to feed and nourish their kids.
But, Will, you've seen it face to face as well. I mean, if America were to deal with these images, would that not change maybe the urgency that maybe our nation would have in trying to do something, which we're about to get into and what you're doing about this? Would that help you?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with our programs in Africa and Asia. You never forget the first time you see a starving child. It's a haunting experience. But what's also so amazing is how effective the solutions are that we have to treat that, particularly this product called ready-to-use therapeutic foods or Life Pack.
Just so everyone can see this, this is the Life Pack that Will is talking about. We started this interview by talking about the problem, but you are a big part of the solution.
This administration, when they came into Washington, they said, we really need to do a better job of ensuring that our presence in the world and our expenditure in other parts of the world are strategic, that every dollar that we're spending outside of America can clearly show that it's making Americans safer, stronger, and more prosperous. And Secretary Rubio gave a great challenge to our sector, which is we need to be able to explain to a fast food worker in Middle America why we would spend even $1 of that fast food worker's money on someone outside of the U.S. when they're seeing real problems in their community every day. And I think we can make that argument for why we should spend just a tiny fraction, a sliver of a percent in the federal budget to make sure that America is a great force for good in the world. But this is exactly what that can look like. I mean, you've got a product that is made in the United States and that's sourced across 27 American farm states. So you've got farmers, thousands of farmers from around the country, literally harnessing the power of their produce. And it's brought to these two nonprofit factories in Georgia and Rhode Island, hundreds of good factory jobs. And in the end, we're harnessing the labor and the love of these American farmers and American factory workers to save millions of kids' lives around the world. And most people have no idea, but it's really happening every day.
So I have to congratulate your marketers because that used to be referred to just simply as RUTF, right? Ready to use, I'm now reading it, ready to use therapeutic food. Now it's the Life Pack. Very good. I'm glad you got it.
I appreciate that.
Have you ever spoken with people that work in those two plants, those two factories, and how they feel about being a part of a remedy for starving children around the world?
Immense pride. I speak with folks in those factories. I speak with the leaders of those factories. Their workers feel immense pride to know that their labor is really going to save kids' lives. And sometimes they get the opportunity to go and see this product delivered in country. But it is a solution to one of mankind's oldest problems. I mean, we've always lived in a world where people starve to death. Starvation has been a thing that's been with us since the beginning. But if we were to scale up this product, and we actually came pretty close a few years ago, we reached 73% coverage. So we went from...
What does that mean, 73% coverage?
So for a long time, this product was invented about 20 years ago. It was invented by a French scientist. And this guy worked for Doctors Without Borders. And he was working in a famine zone. And when you do a Doctors Without Borders mission, they let you bring a few personal items with you on the cargo plane when they basically drop you into this place for a few weeks at a time. He brought his favorite food product, which was Nutella. And at the time, he was working in this feeding center in this famine zone. And before we had this product, basically, all we could do for people in times of famine was to set up these feeding centers, and moms and kids would come from hundreds of miles, and we'd basically give them a broth, a gruel. Mm-hmm. But the conditions in these feeding centers were atrocious, as you might imagine. It was hard to get access to clean water. It was rife with disease. People would have to stay for weeks at a time. So actually in those old feeding centers, we would often see 90% mortality rates, even for the kids that were able to make it to the feeding centers. So he's sitting there lying awake at night saying, my God, I've seen so many kids dying from this. Yeah. And he opens his Nutella and he starts thinking, this is a pretty amazing product. You've got this product that I've brought all the way to Africa. It's totally shelf stable. Mm-hmm. It's nutritious. It's got micro and macronutrients in it. What if we made something like that was shelf stable that we could bring into Africa and give to kids? You don't have to mix it with water. And it's totally changed the game. So after that was developed, for a long time, we still were only reaching about 1 in 4 of the world's starving children with treatment. So 3 in 4 were not getting treatment. And that's why we were seeing several million of them die still every year. A couple of years ago, our foundation partnered with the U.S. government. This was when Russia had invaded Ukraine, and we saw this big global food crisis.
Oh, my God.
All the grain ports.
That's where the word food insecurity started to really become a part of the normal, everyday vocabulary of the world.
It's exactly right. And it was a huge crisis, especially for Africa. They're getting so much of their grain from Russia and Ukraine. And the head of USAID came to us and said, we know that your foundation's been working on this for a long time. Would you bring together a small group of philanthropies that can advise me on what we can do about this? And a couple of us said, some of the foundations were saying focus on fuel and fertilizer and some upstream solutions. We said, do all that for sure, but don't forget.
They're hungry today.
We got 50 million kids who are starving today. And we said, we'll put in $50 million of our money if the U.S. government will put in 200. And that turned into a really exciting partnership. The head of USAID said, I'll do it, but I want to double our money again. I don't want this just to be the U.S. government and your philanthropy putting in the money. We got to get the Europeans to put in money. We got to get other philanthropists put in money. Give me a call list. So we doubled our money again, raised $500 million. And as of last year, we went from reaching just 1 in 4 starving kids with treatment with this product to 73% of kids, to almost 3 in 4.
So let's talk about the appropriations process itself. My good friend Mario Diaz-Ballard has already put $300 million up in the House as an appropriation for the life packs. What's the next step after that?
I mean, this is a tough appropriations cycle. I appreciate the desire to find savings wherever we can. And the fact is, we can't keep spending how much we were spending, but we do still have to fund the things that put our best foot forward in the most strategic parts of the world. And when we look at what is most cost effective in terms of saving lives in a way that's very visible, these products, ready-to-use therapeutic food, what we're calling Life Pack, got the big American flags on both of them.
I love that, by the way. Again, great branding.
I mean, literally, yeah, mom's opening this every day and seeing that it's American people that are saving the lives of her children. In terms of appropriations, we really hope, speaking as the chair of the Malnutrition Advocacy Fund, which is a leading organization that does advocacy on these issues, Mario Diaz-Ballard, as you said, has included $300 million for RUTF in the House bill. We'd really love to see the Senate match that. That $300 million would be enough alongside funding from other donors, if we can work with the administration on that, to roughly maintain the coverage levels that we have now. So
for the life packs.
Most kids for life packs.
But I like in our conversation, I keep feeling, gosh, this is like a partnership. And too often, I think we have asked government to do kind of everything. Yeah. We want you to fund it. We want you to run it, as opposed to be a partner with us in doing something big.
And I think that's the beauty of philanthropy, partnering with governments. The best thing about my job is I don't have to raise money. Right. I'm in the business of giving money away. We got to make sure it's invested well, and then we get to write checks. And we're really not accountable to anyone else. We're not trying to build our brand. The U.S. government does need to be building its brand. We're in a competitive world. Yeah. We're in an existential battle between China and Russia and forces of evil. And so philanthropies are willing to put our money behind the U.S. government and let the U.S. government take the full credit. I mean, the U.S. government's playing a real key role on the financing side. We want to play our role, but we don't want any of the credit. We want 100% of the credit to go to the U.S. government and to the American people, because we got to show the world that we still are the greatest force for good that the world's ever seen.
We're now entering a new period of increased soft diplomacy, right? Where you have countries like China that are trying to gain a foothold in different parts of the world by investing in different parts of the world. And it's not just roads and highways, it's also entertainment. I remember reading about, African villages where they have cable coming in from China, right? Where they're kind of indoctrinating this part of the world in kind of their ways. Isn't this a vital part of soft diplomacy when America does something big? It helps America literally at home, economically and jobs, and et cetera, but it also projects in the right way the image of America that we've long wanted to do to the rest of the world that's looking for friends as things grow tougher and for some very grim.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, China is really smart at the way that they're engaging in those places. And we've been pretty smart too. And I think our greatest successes have often come down to our efforts to truly help people. President Bush, at the height of the AIDS crisis in Africa, when millions and millions of people, it looked like we were going to lose an entire generation in Africa in the early 2000s. President Bush rolled out PEPFAR. That program stopped the spread of AIDS around the world. It saved 25 million lives. And your average African knows that. And the really interesting thing is, the time I spent in Africa, I love talking to like your taxi driver and get their sense of what do they think of China? What do they think of the United States? And every time I ask, I've never had an exception to this. They say that this road we're driving on, the Chinese built it. The Chinese built it because they came in and they bribed our politicians to get the contract, but they brought in all their own labor. They didn't hire anybody from my country or anybody that looks like me. And now this road's falling apart because they built us a bad quality road. And now my country's in debt to China. And America, they say, you've done so much to help our people. They're aware of PEPFAR. They know that we stopped the spread of AIDS. They know that we're helping prevent their children die from starvation, that we're helping them build food systems. And we should be doing it because it's the right thing. Because if you believe in any God, I think you're probably going to be called to account for whether or not you did what you could to help your fellow man. But also because if we don't, we are just opening the door to our rivals. If we don't write the rules for the world, someone else will write those rules, and we will not like those rules, and we may be forced to live by them.
Okay, so you're in the proverbial elevator. You've got 30 seconds with a member of Congress or the United States Senate. What is the pitch? right now for help that is so desperately needed?
The history books are going to write about this time. I mean, we live in interesting times. I think we can all agree on that. I think there are going to be a lot of questions about what did we do? How is it that we, at this strange moment when, half of the world have these supercomputers in our pockets and billionaires are going to space, and yet we had 1 billion of our fellow people living in the dirt.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage them to think about their legacy and how they're going to be remembered. And the fact is, there are a lot of problems we can't solve, but these basic problems, we can solve them with just a few dollars.
Is there anything else you can imagine doing with your life right now?
Honestly, I did not know that I was going to do this work, especially when you have like a grandmother who's like, you should care about this. The rest of us are like, God, please leave me alone.
Like, I want to do something else. We've heard the stories. We know, right?
But when you spend time in these places and when you do see children dying of starvation, it's very hard to do something else, especially when you've got these solutions that are so effective. All we have to do is scale up this product, and it would be so great for the American people, such a great win for this administration, a legacy issue for the president. And I'm confident that we're going to get there. So no, until we live in a world where kids don't die of starvation, this is what I'll be doing.
Will Moore, thank you for everything you're doing. Your grandmother was right. This is a problem that we need to do something about, and you're doing it. And I love the fact that you're doing this in a different way. This isn't just, we need a lot of money so we can do something over here. You're looking for a partnership, and you're looking for both sides to come to the table and be able to do something miraculous, which is saving people's lives.
Thank you for shedding light on an issue that rarely gets the coverage that it deserves.
Will Moore, Godspeed.